Steve Harvey had hosted Family Feud for 33 years, and in that time he had become accustomed to contestants sharing emotional stories, heartwarming revelations, and deeply personal reasons for appearing on the show. But on a bitterly cold February morning in 2027, a 64-year-old woman named Catherine Reynolds would reveal why this appearance was her final chance to do something she dreamed of her entire life. And the reason behind that finite timeline would be so heartbreaking, so medically devastating, and yet delivered with such grace and acceptance that Steve would break down crying uncontrollably on camera and be unable to continue hosting for nearly 20 minutes. What began as a cheerful family introduction would transform into one of the most poignant testimonies about living fully while dying, about prioritizing joy over fear, and about refusing to let terminal illness steal every remaining moment of life. Before we continue with Catherine's revelation about why this was her final chance, if you're moved by these authentic stories about facing mortality with courage, choosing to live while dying, and the importance of fulfilling dreams no matter how little time remains, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. These stories honor those who teach us that life's value isn't measured in years, but in moments that matter. The Reynolds family from Portland, Oregon walked onto the Family Feud stage with an energy that was both celebratory and tinged with something bittersweet that wasn't immediately identifiable. There were 5 of them competing: Catherine, age 64, her husband Robert, who was 66, their daughter Emma, who was 38, their son Daniel, who was 35, and Emma's husband Michael, who was 40. Catherine was an elegant woman with short silver hair styled beautifully, wearing a vibrant emerald green dress that brought out her eyes. She moved carefully but with determination, and there was something about the way her family surrounded her, protective yet celebratory, as though they were simultaneously supporting her and honoring her presence, that suggested this appearance meant something more than typical game show excitement. During the family introductions, Steve worked his way down the line with his characteristic warmth and humor. When he reached Catherine, he immediately complimented her. "Mrs. Reynolds, you look absolutely beautiful today. That green dress is stunning on you." Catherine's smile was radiant and genuine. "Thank you, Mr. Harvey. I wanted to look my best for this. I've been planning this outfit for months." Steve, intrigued by the emphasis she placed on planning, asked a follow-up question. "Months? You've been planning your outfit for months? This appearance must be pretty important to you." Catherine's response would be the first indication that there was a deeper story here. "Mr. Harvey, this appearance is the most important thing I've done in years. I've been watching your show since it first aired decades ago. Being here on this stage with my family is a dream I've had for longer than I can remember, and I almost didn't make it." The phrase, "almost didn't make it," caught Steve's attention immediately. His expression shifted from jovial to more serious, sensing there was weight behind Catherine's words. "What do you mean you almost didn't make it? What happened?" Catherine took a breath, and her family members visibly braced themselves, clearly knowing what she was about to share. "Mr. Harvey, I have early-onset Alzheimer's disease. I was diagnosed 4 years ago at age 60. It's a progressive neurological disease that destroys memory and cognitive function. There's no cure. Over time, I'll lose the ability to recognize my family, to speak, to care for myself, to know who I am. Right now, I'm still in the relatively early stages. I can function mostly normally, though I have significant memory problems and need help with some tasks. But the disease is progressing, and my doctors tell me that within the next 2 to 3 years, I'll likely lose the ability to form new memories, to engage in complex activities, to really be present in the way I am today." The studio fell into immediate, shocked silence. Steve's face showed the impact of Catherine's words, the devastating reality of what she was describing. Alzheimer's disease is a cruel thief that steals a person's essence while leaving their body behind, and hearing that this vibrant, articulate woman would gradually disappear into cognitive darkness was almost unbearable to process. Catherine continued, her voice steady despite the heaviness of what she was sharing. "When I was diagnosed 4 years ago, I made a list of things I wanted to do while I still could. While I still knew who my children were, who my husband was, who I was. At the top of that list was being on Family Feud with my family. I've loved this show my entire adult life. I've watched thousands of episodes. I've played along from my couch for decades. Being here, actually competing, having this experience with the people I love most, this has been a dream for so long." Her voice grew more emotional. "But Alzheimer's has a way of stealing your time faster than you expect. Over the past 4 years, I've watched myself decline. Simple tasks that used to be automatic now require effort and concentration. I forget conversations I had yesterday. I get confused about dates and times. I repeat myself constantly. I need help managing medications and appointments, and I know it's only going to get worse." Catherine paused, her hand going to her husband Robert's, seeking support. "6 months ago, my neurologist told me that my progression was moving faster than initially expected. She said that I probably have 12 to 18 months left where I'll still be cognitively able to participate in and remember complex activities like a game show taping. After that window closes, I'll be too cognitively impaired to really engage with or remember an experience like this. So this isn't just my dream. This is my final chance to fulfill this dream before Alzheimer's takes even this away from me." The devastating revelation that Catherine was living in a narrowing window of cognitive function, that this appearance represented her last chance to do something she'd always wanted, that within months or a year her mind would decline to the point where such experiences would be impossible, hit the studio with overwhelming emotional force. Throughout the audience, people were openly crying, many covering their mouths or holding their hearts, completely unprepared for this level of heartbreak. Steve Harvey stood completely still, his face contorted with the effort of trying to maintain composure. His eyes filled with tears, and his voice was thick when he finally spoke. "Catherine, Mrs. Reynolds, I don't even know what to say. You're standing here knowing you have limited time left where you'll still be yourself, where you'll still be able to recognize your family and make memories. And you chose to spend that precious time here on our show, fulfilling a lifelong dream. That's one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking things I've ever heard." Catherine smiled through her own tears. "Mr. Harvey, I'm dying. Maybe not in the traditional sense where my body stops working, but I'm dying in the sense that the person I am, Catherine Reynolds with all her memories and personality and knowledge of who her loved ones are, that person is slowly disappearing. And I could spend my remaining cognitive time being angry or sad or afraid. But I decided years ago that I would spend whatever time I have left doing things that bring me joy, creating final memories with my family, and living as fully as possible before I can't anymore." Robert, Catherine's husband of 42 years, stepped forward with tears streaming down his face. "Can I say something? Because I need people to understand what my wife is doing here today, the courage it takes." Steve nodded, giving Robert space to speak. Robert's voice was breaking as he addressed the studio. "Catherine was diagnosed 4 years ago, and it's been the most devastating thing our family has ever faced. Not just because of what the disease will do to her, but because we're experiencing anticipatory grief, mourning someone who's still alive, watching them disappear piece by piece, knowing what's coming but being powerless to stop it." Robert continued, "But Catherine made a decision early on that she wouldn't let Alzheimer's steal every remaining moment of her life. She made a bucket list and has been systematically working through it. We've traveled to places she always wanted to see while she can still appreciate and remember them. She's recorded video messages for grandchildren she'll eventually not remember. She's written letters to all of us to be opened after she's too cognitively impaired to express these things herself. And being on Family Feud was near the top of her list because she's loved this show for so long." He looked at his wife with profound love and pain. "Getting her here today was complicated. We had to apply months ago, go through the selection process, coordinate schedules, and manage Catherine's declining abilities. There were days I wasn't sure we'd make it, days when Catherine's confusion was so severe I thought we might need to cancel. But she was determined. She told me, 'Robert, I'm going to be on that stage while I still know I'm on that stage and can remember it afterward. I'm not letting Alzheimer's take this from me.'" Emma, Catherine's daughter, spoke next, her voice shaking with emotion. "My mom has always been the strongest person I know. Watching Alzheimer's gradually steal her from us has been torture. There are already moments when she doesn't remember recent conversations, when she gets confused about where she is or what day it is. Last week she forgot my brother's name for the first time, just for a moment, but it was a glimpse of what's coming. Eventually, she won't know who I am, won't recognize her own daughter." Emma's tears were flowing freely now. "But she's handling this disease with more grace than I could ever imagine. She's not hiding from what's happening. She's been open with us about her decline, about what she needs, about her fears. And she's chosen to focus on experiences and memories while she can still create them. This appearance today, being on her favorite show with her family, having this experience while she can still understand and appreciate it. This is Mom choosing life and joy over fear and despair. That's who she is, even as Alzheimer's tries to erase who she is." Daniel, Catherine's son, shared his perspective. "Mom has always talked about being on Family Feud. For as long as I can remember, we'd watch together and she'd say, 'Someday I'm going to be on that stage playing this game.' It was a running joke in our family, this dream of hers. And when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I thought that dream would just remain a dream, something she'd never get to fulfill. But she was determined to make it happen while she still could, and our whole family mobilized to help her achieve it. Daniel's voice broke. In 6 months or a year or 18 months, Mom won't be able to do this anymore. She won't be able to understand the questions, remember the answers, or even know why she's standing on a stage. This is her final chance, and she knows it. We all know it. And that makes today incredibly special and incredibly sad all at once. Steve Harvey, who had been listening to all of this while visibly struggling with his emotions, finally reached his breaking point. Tears began streaming down his face, and despite his attempt to maintain professional composure, his body was shaking with the force of suppressed sobs. He tried to speak but couldn't get words out. He raised his hand in an apologetic gesture, turned away from the camera, and began openly weeping. Production immediately cut to a break, and for nearly 20 minutes, Steve Harvey stood in the wings of his own show, crying so hard he could barely breathe, being comforted by crew members while processing the devastating beauty of what Catherine had shared. Catherine's story had broken through every defense Steve had constructed over 3 decades of hosting, reaching a place of raw human emotion that couldn't be contained by professionalism. When Steve finally composed himself enough to return, his face was swollen from crying, his eyes red, and he made no attempt to hide the emotional impact of what he'd just experienced. He approached Catherine directly, took both her hands in his, and spoke with complete sincerity. "Mrs. Reynolds, Catherine, I am so sorry. I'm sorry for what you're facing, for what your family is facing, for the cruelty of a disease that steals people from themselves and from those who love them. I am so honored, truly honored, that you chose to spend this precious time you know is limited, here on our show." Steve's voice was breaking repeatedly as he continued. "You said this appearance was your final chance to fulfill a lifelong dream before Alzheimer's takes away your ability to do this. That tells me that despite knowing what's ahead, despite the fear and grief that must come with your diagnosis, you've chosen to focus on living, on joy, on creating meaningful experiences while you still can. That is extraordinary courage. That is grace in the face of the unthinkable. And that is a lesson everyone watching needs to learn, that we don't stop living just because we're dying, that we don't surrender our dreams just because time is limited." Steve addressed the audience and cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine Reynolds has early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Within the next year or so, she'll lose the cognitive ability to participate in and remember experiences like this. She's living in a narrowing window of time where she's still herself, still knows her family, still can fulfill dreams she's had for decades. And she chose to spend that precious time here with us, fulfilling her dream of being on Family Feud. That is one of the greatest honors anyone has ever given this show or me personally." He turned back to Catherine and her family. "We are going to make this the most special episode we've ever done. This is not just a game. This is Catherine's final chance to live this dream before Alzheimer's steals it from her. We're going to honor that. Every person in this studio, every crew member, every audience member, we are all here today to help Catherine fulfill her final chance at this dream. And I promise you, Mrs. Reynolds, we're going to make sure this experience is everything you hoped it would be." The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes, people applauding through their tears, honoring this woman's courage and the bittersweet beauty of what this moment represented. Catherine stood at the center of the stage, surrounded by her family, crying and smiling simultaneously, living fully in a moment she dreamed about for decades and would eventually forget but would exist forever in the memories of those who loved her, and in the footage that would preserve it. The game proceeded, and it was unlike any game that had been played on Family Feud before. The opposing family, the Martinez family from Arizona, played with obvious emotion and grace, clearly more focused on helping create a beautiful experience for Catherine than on winning. Steve moderated with unusual tenderness, celebrating every answer Catherine gave, whether correct or not, and frequently pausing to make sure she was comfortable and enjoying herself. When Catherine came to the podium for her turn, Steve asked before starting the question, "Catherine, how are you feeling? Are you having a good time?" Catherine's response was simple and profound. "Mr. Harvey, I'm having the time of my life. I'm on Family Feud. I'm playing the game I've loved for decades. I'm here with my family. I'm creating a memory that my children and grandchildren will have forever even after I've forgotten. This is perfect. This is exactly what I hoped it would be." The Reynolds family won their game decisively, and when they advanced to fast money, Catherine insisted on going second despite her family's concerns about the additional pressure. "I want the full experience," she explained. I want to remember doing the harder part, the part where you know how many points you need. I want all of it while I still can. Emma went first in fast money and scored 187 points, which meant Catherine needed just 13 points to win the $20,000, an easily achievable goal. But what happened during Catherine's turn would become one of the most memorable moments in Family Feud history. Steve asked the first question, "Name something people do every morning." Catherine responded confidently, "Brush their teeth." It was the number one answer, worth 48 points, already far more than needed to win. But then Catherine paused before Steve could move to the next question. "Mr. Harvey, can I say something before we continue?" Steve immediately stopped. "Of course, Catherine, whatever you need to say." Catherine took a breath and addressed the cameras directly. "I want to talk to everyone watching who might be dealing with Alzheimer's or whose family member has Alzheimer's or who's afraid of diseases like this. Because I need to say something important." The studio fell silent as Catherine gathered her thoughts. "Alzheimer's is terrifying. Knowing you're going to forget your life, your loved ones, yourself, it's one of the cruelest fates imaginable, and I'm terrified. I'm afraid of the day I won't recognize my husband's face. I'm afraid of forgetting my children's names. I'm afraid of losing myself completely. Those fears are real and valid, and I carry them every day." Catherine's voice grew stronger. "But I made a decision when I was diagnosed. I would not let fear of what's coming steal whatever time I have left where I'm still me. Every day I spend being afraid is a day I lose twice. Once to fear now and again to Alzheimer's later. So I choose every single day to focus on what I can still do rather than what I'm losing. I choose to create experiences and memories while I can. I choose joy over despair. I choose living over dying even though both are happening simultaneously." She looked directly at the camera with intensity. "If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or any progressive disease, please hear me. You're not dead yet. You still have time. Maybe not as much as you want, maybe not as much as you thought you'd have, but you have now. Use it. Do the things you've always wanted to do. Create the memories and experiences that matter. Don't wait until it's too late and then regret the time you wasted being afraid. I'm standing on this stage living my dream because I chose not to waste my remaining good time being paralyzed by fear of the bad time that's coming." The profound wisdom and courage of Catherine's impromptu speech left everyone in the studio weeping. Steve was crying again, not even attempting to hide it. Catherine's family was sobbing. The audience was devastated by the beauty and sadness of what they were witnessing. And Catherine herself, having said what she needed to say, smiled and said simply, "Okay, Mr. Harvey, I'm ready for the rest of the questions now." They completed fast money, though it was anticlimactic since Catherine had already secured more than enough points to win. The celebration that followed was emotional beyond description. Family members embracing Catherine, Steve embracing the entire family, the audience on their feet applauding and crying, everyone present understanding they had witnessed something sacred, a woman choosing life and joy in the face of certain cognitive death. When the episode aired 10 weeks later, preceded by extensive resources about Alzheimer's and dementia care, the response was unprecedented. Within 48 hours, the clip of Catherine revealing this was her final chance before Alzheimer's took away her ability to participate in such experiences had been viewed over 2.5 billion times globally, making it one of the most watched moments in television history. Alzheimer's organizations reported being overwhelmed with responses. Thousands of families dealing with dementia shared how Catherine's story gave them permission to prioritize experiences and joy rather than just managing decline. Many reported being inspired to help their loved ones fulfill bucket list items while there was still time, to focus on creating final memories rather than just waiting for the inevitable. The Alzheimer's Association released a statement. "Catherine Reynolds has given an extraordinary gift to the Alzheimer's community. By sharing her diagnosis so openly, by demonstrating that life doesn't end at diagnosis, and by showing that people with early-stage Alzheimer's can and should continue pursuing dreams and creating meaningful experiences, she's challenged the stigma and despair that often accompany this diagnosis. Her message, that we must choose living over merely existing even as we're dying, is one that everyone facing terminal or progressive illness needs to hear." Medical professionals specializing in dementia care praised Catherine's approach. "What Mrs. Reynolds is doing, actively pursuing meaningful activities and experiences while she's still cognitively able, is actually beneficial from both a quality of life and potentially a disease management perspective," one neurologist explained. "Remaining engaged, stimulated, and emotionally fulfilled may not stop Alzheimer's progression, but it maximizes quality of life during remaining functional time." Her choice to focus on living rather than waiting to die is both psychologically healthy and medically sound. 6 months after the Family Feud appearance, Catherine's family provided an update. Her cognitive decline had continued as expected, and she was now having more difficulty with memory and daily tasks. But the Family Feud episode remained one of her clearest memories, something she could still discuss with detail and joy even as more recent events faded quickly. It's like that day was so meaningful, so emotionally significant, that it's been encoded more deeply than ordinary memories, Emma explained. Mom can't remember what she had for breakfast, but she can describe being on Family Feud, what Steve Harvey said to her, how it felt to be on that stage. That memory has staying power because of how much it mattered to her. The family had created a memory book filled with photos and details from the Family Feud experience, and when Catherine felt confused or frightened, they would look through it together. It grounds her, Robert shared. When she's having a bad day, we watch the episode or look at the memory book and she lights up. For those moments, she's back to who she was that day, happy, fulfilled, living her dream. Those moments are precious now. 1 year after the appearance, Catherine's condition had deteriorated significantly. She now required constant care and supervision, had difficulty recognizing people and places, and her language abilities were severely impaired. But her family reported that she still responded to the Family Feud episode. When they played it for her, even though she no longer fully understood what she was watching, she would smile and seem to feel happiness connected to seeing herself on screen. Some echo of that meaningful experience still present even as so much else was gone. We knew this day would come, Emma shared through tears. We knew Mom would eventually decline to the point where she couldn't really understand or remember, but we have that episode. We have footage of Mom at her best, living her dream, speaking with wisdom and courage about facing her disease. When we miss the Mom we knew, we watch that episode. And someday, when we want to show our children and grandchildren who their grandmother was before Alzheimer stole her, we'll have that beautiful record of her courage and grace. 2 years after her Family Feud appearance, Catherine Reynolds was in advanced stages of Alzheimer's, no longer verbal, requiring total care, and unable to recognize her family. Robert, Emma, Daniel, and the rest of the family continued caring for her with profound love, even as the woman they knew had disappeared into the disease. But they had the memories from that perfect day on Family Feud, the record of Catherine at her best, and the knowledge that she had refused to let fear of what was coming rob her of experiences and joy while she still could. At a fundraiser for Alzheimer's research held in Catherine's honor, her family shared her legacy. Mom taught us that you're not dead until you're dead, that even with a terminal diagnosis you still have choices about how to spend your remaining time, that you can choose joy over fear, living over waiting to die. She faced Alzheimer's with more courage than most people could imagine, and she made sure to fulfill her dreams while she still could. That's how we'll remember her, not as an Alzheimer's victim, but as someone who refused to let the disease define her until it absolutely had to. If Catherine Reynolds' revelation that appearing on Family Feud was her final chance to fulfill a lifelong dream before Alzheimer's took away her cognitive ability, delivered with grace and courage while acknowledging the terror of her diagnosis, has moved you, inspired you to prioritize what matters most, or reminded you that we must live fully no matter how limited our time may be, please take a moment now to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with anyone facing terminal or progressive illness who needs to be reminded that life isn't over at diagnosis. With families caring for loved ones with dementia who need to see that creating meaningful experiences while still possible is important and worthwhile. And with everyone who sometimes forgets to appreciate the time they have while they have it. Catherine's choice to pursue her dream while she still could, Steve Harvey's heartbroken response that honored the profound significance of her final chance, and her family's commitment to helping her live fully while dying has inspired millions and changed how people think about Alzheimer's and terminal diagnoses. Your engagement helps ensure this powerful message about choosing life over fear, about creating meaningful moments while we still can, and about the importance of helping those we love fulfill their dreams before it's too late reaches more people who need to hear it. The story of 64-year-old Catherine Reynolds revealing that her Family Feud appearance was her final chance to fulfill a lifelong dream before early-onset Alzheimer's disease robbed her of the cognitive ability to participate in and remember such experiences stands as one of the most heartbreaking and inspiring testimonies about living while dying ever shared. her acknowledgement that she was terrified of what Alzheimer's would do to her, erase her memories, her recognition of loved ones, her very self, combined with her determination not to let that fear steal her remaining good time, demonstrated extraordinary courage and wisdom. Steve Harvey's complete emotional breakdown, crying so hard he had to leave the stage for 20 minutes, showed that some moments transcend entertainment and pierce directly to the heart of what it means to be human. Catherine's impromptu speech about choosing joy over despair, living over waiting to die, and making the most of whatever time remains challenged everyone watching to reconsider their priorities and stop taking for granted the time they have. Her legacy lives on not just in her family's memories and in the footage that preserved her at her best, but in the millions of people she inspired to pursue their dreams while they still can, to create meaningful experiences rather than waiting for perfect circumstances, and to choose life fully even in the shadow of death. That is a lesson worth learning, a courage worth honoring, and a life that mattered deeply even as disease worked to erase it.